The Passionate Leader, because leadership without passion is just a title.
Meeting. We got a collapse in the garage. Get the squad back equipment in here. We got an I-beam gone to a firefighter.
Get that island urgent. Transmit a second along.
This is where titles end and leadership begins.
Well, hey, everybody. It's JP with part 3 of our Ask Yourself series. Not sure how well this audio and camera is going to work because we're doing something in the car, so we'll give her a little bit of a test. She seems to be kind of working around a little bit, but thought I'd just kind of come on today. We didn't really have a guest lined up for today or this week. It's been pretty busy. We have recorded quite a few episodes, but they're collaborations and they're due to release at the end of August. Next week is vacation. We are due and set to release an episode. It will be releasing on the 14th, which is Friday, not our traditional go-to day. So this collaboration with A Silent War Within. But, this week's episode, is really kind of just some fallout from a recent post that I made on social media. And it obviously comes as no surprise to faithful followers of the platforms that I can say some things that really can make some people upset. And I don't want to say that that's my intent, thinking that I'm a rage bait maniac or anything like that. But the thought process is to get people to think, really dive deep into the thought process, the ask yourselves. So yeah, we do put some hot takes out there on social media, and our more recent one is the first time we've gone viral in the meta world. We have seen 41 some odd thousand views, at least, if not more. A ton of accounts hit, a lot of names being called and things like that. But I wanted to kind of touch base on that aspect. So the video at hand, if you want to go into the social media platform, either in Facebook or Instagram, is the one in which it starts off. It's a 2-part video. It's one of us one of somebody who is wearing their Class A's, playing the art of a drill instructor for a firehouse. The recruits are doing little wall sits. I felt it was foolish. I still do. Admittedly, I will say that my comments on that video are probably a little more egregious than he needed to be, but it obviously did start a dialogue. My intent behind that was I see no reason why we need to do this whole fear indoctrination of making people so scared that they listen to us. Because if we need to make them so scared that they listen to us, are they going to listen to us in the hallways when we're not yelling at them? It's Full Metal Jacket style. It was kind of cute in its aspects of the way that it worked, but I didn't really see any value in it, so I made a video of it. And there have been a lot of supporters for it and a lot of haters for it. But here's what I find really funny, though. Let's talk about the haters for a second. I want you to ask yourself, why is it people's first reaction? Why is their first reaction to attack when they hear something that offends them? It's not a dialogue or anything like that. It is quite literally an attack, name calling, people telling me I don't know what I'm talking about. I guarantee there'd be some fat comments in there if I hadn't lost 85 pounds already. People want to joke on my mustache. I really don't care. But what I'm getting at is why do we need to, why is that the need that we feel? Our first move is to attack. Instead of coming back with facts or, hey man, I think you're off base. And don't get me wrong, there were some conversations that were had. People defending the individual whose actions I was calling out, kind of called me out. And I appreciate that. That is some of the dialogue that we need to have. But where did we get so caught up in our own egos, in our own selves, that when we have hard conversations, we can only put people down? We can't have a dialogue. We talk a lot about in the fire service, a ton about having these hard conversations If somebody says something that offends you, you go and want to talk, you don't want to talk about it, right? Have that hard conversation. But when the moment of opportunity arises, the first thing we do, we get out the pitchforks and tune in the spears. Makes no sense to me. Another little aspect, there was one commenter on the TikTok version of the video. First thing you could do was attack my credibility, my resume. So that's another aspect that I kind of question with people. So if we, where again, attack my comments, not my content. It doesn't make sense. So the best thing you can do is kind of attack me. So that's kind of where we're at. I think the fire service is making leaps and bounds. We do need to have these hard conversations, but it really feels sometimes like we need to let things go. A question we asked in the live last night is, where in the fire service did we make it acceptable, or do we start letting it be acceptable to start spinning out on things that we can't control? When did we kind of lose grip of that? I don't really know the answer to that question myself. I myself have found myself, so to speak, spending a lot of time spinning out on things that I don't have any control over. Is it because we care too much about the fire service? Is it because we try to make things right? I really don't know. So ask yourself, what are we doing in the fire service to make it better, truly make it better? When did we make it okay to crap all over people when their opinions don't match ours? Why is that okay? And I think what I found funny was, with this video, it was me calling out the art of trying to play a drill instructor in the fire service, when in reality, I don't think we need that. The excuses that we keep being given are that we need to, again, build them or rip them down to tear them back up. Or we're trying to introduce them to a synthetic base of stress. So when they're on scene, they're getting yelled at. So it's more of a challenge to the other leaders. Where do we need to still yell at people on the fire grounds? You don't. If you feel the need to still yell at people on a fire ground, you've lost your ability to communicate with your members. And it's simple, right? Get down on their level. Let's break this down to like parenting 101. And somebody tried to equate that, they tried to accuse me of liking gentle parenting. Let's be very clear about one thing. I do not agree with gentle parenting. In fact, I feel a good swat on the backside sometimes is still a warranted action. But what I will say with that is there's a time and a place. It's grasping for straws. People couldn't really give me any answer. So let's kind of break this down into leading like parenting. Leadership is parenting. We have to have our tough love, our moments of yeses and our moments of nos. There are some times that their consequences are going to have adverse reactions to our benefits. How many times, for those of us that are parents, have we ended up having to forego something that we as an adult wanted to do because our child didn't behave in a manner to which we knew they were taught? So again, it's the tough love. Sometimes we have to do that. Doesn't mean we hate the people or we think that they're little. I just don't know, for those that offered support, we gained a lot of people to the platform, to the show, and I think that's really a good thing. We just need to kind of decipher where that is a necessity. All right, there we go. Now it's going to track my face. I do apologize, guys. That little sidetrack there was the video not following my damn face. So now we are. So if those that are watching the video, you might now see that the camera's actually following my face. It's pretty cool. Anyways, I digress. So we got some new followers to the show. It's great. A lot of good comments. To the ones that actually posted legit content with their questions. You know, JP, I disagree with what you have to say, and here's why. That's perfect. This is how you have a hard conversation. You know, I talk a lot about how I like to approach hard conversations with, this is how I envision our conversation ending. End of discussion, right? Like, when we are done with this conversation, this is how it will end. This is where we will end with our conversation today. That's how I like to approach hard conversations. But another way that people can approach their hard conversations is to be like, hey, dude, I didn't agree with what you had to say. And this is why. Because what that does is that now gives the receiver, in this instance, myself, the ability to see the reasoning for their opinion. And that kind of brings up another point. Arguing with some people on social media, you can't argue people on their opinion. It's just that way. We all have people in our lives, or have had people in our lives, who have always, they're set in their ways, so to speak, right? That's just how so-and-so is. They're stubborn, they're set in their ways, especially for those of us who come from New England. We're just stubborn New Englanders. They could tell you today that the sky is blue, and tomorrow they're going to tell you the sky is green. And you're not going to be able to convince them what color it is otherwise. It's just that simple. You are arguing with them their opinion. You can't argue their opinion. But let's bring this full circle, right? So I made a video that was kind of egregious. Yes, I did accuse the individual of being an ego with the radio, and that their way of doing it is only going to create carbon copies of poor leaders. I still feel that way, because all you're doing is teaching those firefighters how yelling is the way to get through to them. And it's not. It's not. There are a ton of books of research and leadership experts that can refute all of that. The best way to communicate with somebody is to get on their level. If your only way of communicating is yelling, you're trying to get them on your level. And probably the funniest excuse that I saw the entire time so far in all these comments, and as I'm recording, my phone to my side's blowing up. The biggest excuse I saw, aside from we need to tear them down to build them up, like we're Arlie Army, or is it Army? I may have pronounced that incorrect. Full Metal Jacket, right? For those that believe that this is the FD Fort Knox, so to speak. We got to build them, rip them down and tear them up and build them the way that we need to be. That's a line of horse crap. If you can't select your right firefighters through your hiring process and then build them the proper way through an in-house recruit program that empowers them to grow without the use of profanity and yelling and physical, push-ups and wall sits and jumping jacks, then you're not really leading. You're just training militants. You're training obedience. And again, like I just said earlier, that's opinion. This is just JP's opinion on how that works. But I can tell you right now that for me, I would not make it through one of those recruit classes. One, because I'd die of laughter. I think it's absolutely comical to sit back and watch people try to yell at others to build them down, or tear them down to build them up. It's so ridiculous of a thought process, I can't even orient it right. The way that you teach them to be calm under pressure is for you yourself to be calm under pressure. I can tell you a plethora of radio transmissions that I have heard where there's a fire chief or first arriving officer on scene has a mill fully involved. Just picture the orphanage, right? Let's go to our proverbial, there's nuns and orphans everywhere. The nuns and orphans are trapped in the orphanage and it's on fire from top to bottom, left to right. You're fully involved, as people really like to claim, the impossible fire to have. But if you listen to the radio transmissions, the chief, whoever's on scene again, is calm, they're cool, and they're collective. Trying to beat that into somebody doesn't work. People are born with that ideology, or they learn it through example, not by being put into this synthetic, stressful situation. It just doesn't work. It doesn't. Because if it did work, the whole fire service would do the same thing, but it doesn't. So I challenge you to show me proof that this business practice is the best for the fire service. Now, on the opposite side, I've definitely sat back and I've listened to some 50 radio or Broadcastify. Insert whatever, streaming system you want to listen to for your digital radio pleasure. I have listened to people who have had a smoke smell in the building, sound absolutely flustered, have no idea what side of the building they're supposed to be setting command up on, and they've absolutely lost command and control of that scene because they're yelling. And let's bring it back to the whole thought process of when the fit hits the shan, we default to our lowest level of training. So if you're trained in a constant yelling at you state, you're going to revert to that when the fit really hits the shan. Or if you're taught how to be calm under any circumstance, whether it be fire in front of you or somebody on social media saying something that you disagree with, you're going to control yourself and your emotions far better than you will if you only remember being yelled at. But guys, as always, with these Ask Yourself series, they're short. They're just JP's thought processes. I had some time. I'm in the car right now. I'm working my way back up to Manchester after sitting in the parking lot garage of the hospital waiting for a transport van to deliver the missus there. And she's now finally there, and now I'm going back to pick her ass up. So I figured I'd do a little quick recording while I'm en route, see how the audio comes back, and everything like that. I do remind everybody at the Fire and Foliage Symposium happening October 16th and 17th at the Sheridan in Nashua. All of the money that we're bringing in from that, I should say, is going to go to start a scholarship fund. And the scholarship fund is intended to send people to classes. Maybe it's sending people to classes for basic human decency, leadership skills under stressful environments, and maybe teach communication skills for those that don't maybe necessarily have them. If something today in today's episode stuck, actually, before I get to the ending, don't forget, as I said in the very beginning, next week's episode will be dropping August 14th. That's a Friday instead of our typical Tuesday. Same time, 3:43 a.m. Before you watch our episode, please go to A Silent War Within, as that is part 1 of our mini-series with Kevin Witzel and Jason Mindershagen from A Silent War Within, where I step into their arena. And in part 2, here on the Passionate Leader platform, Kevin Witzel steps into ours and we continue our conversation. So please, before you watch next week's episode, go to A Silent War Within, like, share, and subscribe. Listen to the episode with yours truly as a guest, and then we'll bring it back around to the Passionate Leader at 3:43 on Friday morning with A Silent War Within's host, Kevin Witzel. If something in today's episode stuck, please make sure you share it, like it, and subscribe. If you want to be part of a deeper conversation, please make sure you reach out to us to get into the Discord page. I'll be very honest, we first started a Patreon page to try to generate some revenue, but right now I don't see any value in charging you guys for the pay to play. I think it's tacky, tactless, tasteless is probably the word I'm looking for, and it serves no purpose in the fire service. We need to worry about spreading the wealth and not keeping the wealth, right? The wealth of knowledge. As always, be the leader that you've been praying for, the one you needed when you first joined the fire service, and unequivocally, lead with passion, serve with humility, and leave no room for bottom feeders. Until we meet each other again, everybody, stay safe.